In this video, I'm going to be changing the gearbox oil in my Smart Fortwo 451. Hello and a very warm welcome to another video from Auto Night. Now over the last week I've done a lot of miles, and for that reason I decided to drive the Smart, because this Jeep, the trusty workhorse, is just too thirsty to make it viable if I'm doing 50 miles or more a day. And I've missed driving this thing. In fact, just moving it back in the garage here to make some space for this video, I immediately enjoyed the luxury and the comfort of its seats, and I can't wait to be back in this again after the Smart, which is great for economy, but it has its limitations. For those of you who watched my last video, you may remember that I said my next video was going to be the rear brake shoes and the wheel cylinders on the Smart. Well, unfortunately, I ordered the parts and there was a problem. So I placed an order with Autodoc for these rear brake shoes. But unfortunately, when I opened them up, they weren't all neatly arranged like this. They were all scrambled in there, and they'd obviously collided with each other in transit, and there's a chunk missing out of this brake lining on this particular brake shoe and some further damage here. Now the bits are in the bottom of the box. It's really disappointing. The overall package was well packed. There was plenty of stuff around the outside of these boxes that were placed inside a bigger box, but ultimately this is crap, and I can't fit that, and I won't fit that. So I'm trying to return these, and the nerve of it, I've got to pay the postage back, even though this is clearly not of my doing. But nonetheless, I think the moral of this story is that it may have actually been easier and cheaper to have just bought these locally, and there's a lesson learned here, I think. That said, the brake drums, Fiebe Bilstein, seem absolutely fine. Great brand, German, good quality. And they were actually a good price, so all is not lost. I'll be sourcing some more brake shoes, and then we can get on with replacing all of this along with the two wheel cylinders. So here's the fluid that I picked up today from the Smart dealer. It's not too expensive, it's just over 20 quid a litre. It's important to get the correct oil that conforms to Mercedes-Benz standard 235.72, which rules out quite a lot of transmission oils. It's actually 75W90. So definitely do your research to make sure whatever you're putting in there is right for the car. That's the part number there. Focus. And the capacity is around 2.3 litres. I've got a washing up bowl here just to drain the old oil into. And it's an 8mm Allen key socket that you need. Now, because my car is the 84 brake horsepower turbo model, it has an intercooler. Therefore, it has an air scoop here, which is this. Does make access to the filler plug, which you can just see there in the middle, a little bit more difficult. Now, if you have a 71 brake horsepower non-turbo MHD, you won't have this plastic to contend with, and access will be far easier. Now, anyone with an ounce of common sense will work out that you need to really check first that the filler plug isn't seized, the higher of the two plugs, before you drain all the fluid out, because you're screwed if you drain all your fluid out and then you've got no way of getting it back in. So we check this first just to make sure it's free, and then we can move on to draining the fluid out. So using an extension and an 8mm Allen key socket, we can see if we can release this. So it was important that the Allen key is seated fully right into the depth of the drain plug. That minimises your chances of rounding it off. Now that has come free, which is good news. They usually do. Now, turning our attention to under the car, this is the drain plug. And you can see here just how deep the Allen key can go into the recess within this. And that one's loose. Now, I've driven this car around 50 miles. I've left it half hour to cool down a little bit and for the oil to settle. And it will be interesting to see what colour this oil is. It's a good idea to leave that draining for a while. That's pretty much stopped dripping now, so that can go back in. Don't need to go mad tightening it. And just clean off any residue with a blast of brake cleaner, which evaporates, leaving it clean. So this is the old oil from the gearbox. It's brown in colour, it's just how I would expect it to look really after 75,000 miles. The gearbox oil on these cars is said to be in the vehicle for life, which always worries me. I think for life is difficult to quantify. How long was the vehicle intended to last? This car's 14 years old. I think it's a good time to change it. There's no evidence of any metal particles in there. There's no grey colour. Grey is the colour to watch. If you see grey in a gearbox oil, that generally means that you've got metal particles in suspension from wear or damage to the internals. I once changed a gearbox on a Golf and the gearbox oil came out like a grey paste, and it was howling in every gear. Gearbox was totally shot. And likewise, I once changed a rear differential on a Vauxhall Carlton, and that was the same. That was making a lot of noise, and when I changed it out for a new one, I observed that the oil was grey in colour. So grey's the warning sign. I have actually taken a little sample of the oil here and placed that in a jar, and no red flags here. So it's now time to fill the gearbox with the correct quantity, and you may be wondering how we're going to get the oil in there, into the filler hole. And there is an easy way. Now this here is my oil pump, so it sucks at one end and it blows at the other, so you can use this for drawing out oil if you've got an application where there's no drain hole. It's very useful. I bought it for my Jeep. There's a lot of fluids to change on the Jeep because you've got so many different axles and transfer cases and things. And I'm going to use this today. So all I need to do is pump this and transfer 2.3 litres of fluid from these containers into the gearbox via these pipes. You'll know when it's at the correct level because oil will start to flow from the filler hole, as it is now. It's important at this time to get the vehicle completely level, as that level is set correctly when the vehicle is also level. At the moment this side is jacked up, so I will level this off to ensure that ultimately the oil level is correct for this car. The wheel's back on, flow the vehicle down, so now the oil is actually settled into the correct level. Once that's stopped dripping, I'll raise it back up, whip the wheel off again, and then I can get access to the plug, and then it will be job done. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's a nice, quick, simple one, and the kind of job that anyone who has the will and a few simple tools can easily accomplish at home. Stay tuned for further videos on the Smart and, of course, the Jeep. There are a few things coming up on this too. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.